Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this panel discussion. Really looking forward to some very interactive discussions with our wonderful Action Coach business coaches and giving you a perspective of maybe some of the fears and questions that people go through when they're looking at this business. So almost by default, we've stumbled across some very nice topics to cover off on today, but it's really dealing with things that we've heard from you in the past. Things like, is there a market for this? Are people willing to buy coaching and services? How do you market this business, get clients on board? Even worse, in a pandemic like we've been focusing on. So we're going to cover off on all of those things, but including the ability to run an Action Coach business in a smaller town. And that's the unintended one, because all three of our coaches, Thabo is in Bloemfontein, Antoinette is in Secunda, Luke is in the Midlands. And the perception that this is a business that will only work in Johannesburg or Cape Town will be banished forever today as we go through that, because all three of them joined this business as we went into lockdown or just after. So Thabo and Antoinette were actually on training in Vegas. We used to do all our face-to-face training in Vegas at the Action Coach head office. They were at training when the world was starting to shut down. Borders were closing. Thabo chose to come back a few days earlier, complete his training virtually. Antoinette decided to stay. 4 flights were cancelled, was pretty much the last person going through the Vegas airport to come home, got stuck in quarantine, as did Thabo. And Luke didn't have that option, despite the fact that he wanted it. He ended up going to training virtually and through the early hours of the morning having his experience there. So we'll do some further introductions shortly, but just as a quick one, Antoinette Venter joined us in March last year. She's a single mom. She's a corporate refugee, left her previous corporate role, has had some sideline businesses in the past, and is really dedicated to making a difference for other businesses. Thabo was actually a client of Action Coach. Dr. Thabo Pitse, who is actually a medical doctor by training, has had a variety of other businesses, had a training and entrepreneurial development business, and that's the one that he was coached in. And he ended up buying his coach's business when his coach moved on to do some other things in the pharmaceutical game, and Thabo joined us in Bloemfontein, and they were both on the same training session. And then Luke, who's been a client for many years, actually. Luke Dillon, he's based in the Midlands in KZN. So that beautiful Midlands meander you go through, Luke's based there and has had many businesses in the past, quite the serial entrepreneur, had some massive successes, had some serious challenges, and wanted to take that best of both worlds experience and kind of shortcut the process of learning for other people and make sure that he could make a massive impact. So we're going to get some insights from all three of them through the course of the afternoon. So maybe ladies first, let's start with Antoinette. Antoinette, maybe just a quick introduction into who you are, and then also that experience of going into this business, coming into lockdown, and what that was like for you.
I came to a point in my career where I was in the corporate world, as you say, where I felt that I've hit the ceiling and there was nothing more to do, no excitement, no challenge. And also that whole thing that you're not making an impact on other people's lives anymore. So for me, that was a big motivation to start this business. Plus, I like to teach people. I've always been good at teaching, developing, all that skill spot, stirring the skill spot, putting people in different spots and all of that. So to me, it was a little bit of all those elements mixed together in one pot that made me move forward.
Yeah, great, thanks. And Luke, if we go to you next, you were a client and then decided, this Action Coach business coaching thing looks more exciting than my previous business. So what brought about the shift for you and the change for you?
Hello, Harry. Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, Harry, I think I joined Action Coach in 2016. No, actually, 2014. by chance, going through a bit of a team challenge. Now that I look at it, I don't know what I called it in those days, but yeah, it was just seeing how brilliant the system was and how much it helped me in that specific business, in looking at the disc profiles of the partners and seeing that, going through that process. And if I looked at where I was when I started with ActionCOACH in 2014 and where I was at the beginning of last year, it was just such a radical difference, that really was my driver, to look at it and say, okay, well, if ActionCOACH could make such a difference in my life, and I can have such, imagine there are loads of people that I can help. And further to that, my parents were battling serial entrepreneurs who just went from one failure to the next. And I think if they'd had an ActionCOACH, how different their lives would have been, and probably how different my life would have been. So those were my key drivers.
Thabo, Bloemfontein, medical doctor originally, then went into entrepreneurial development and then joined as an action coach. So what was the motivation for you to shift from being a client of ActionCOACH to actually buying your own franchise and doing this full time?
All right. Thank you very much, Harry, and my colleagues, and everyone who is here. Well, it was exactly that. The fact that I was a client and I saw the value of what coaching does. I'll take it further back. You know, the person that I am, I mean, you know, from school, whether I did sport or even if I was in a choir, I was the guy getting solos. So literally, I'm a guy who, I know I like playing dumb when I'm in a company of people who are good and everything. But I'm one person, I don't know what second best is, and I don't want second best. So I went into business and I didn't want to be second best. So whatever that I'm doing, I want to be good at it. But obviously, I mean, I didn't study business, even though, well, yes, I started studying business, but the point where I was running my business and businesses, as also a serial entrepreneur, I realized that there are a lot of things I don't know here. With all the education I have, I don't know these things, you know, so I needed help. And I was very blessed to find an action coach from Bloemfontein, Diedrich, whom I bought the franchise from. I mean, what he brought to me also as a, you know, as an academic, as somebody who is trained, who follows models, who understands the principle of education, so to say, everything that ActionCOACH brought, it resonated with me, number one. But the most excited part about it is that I found, like I'm saying, it was that help I'm looking for, you know, from the education, the coaching itself. I was growing personally now. It was changing me as a person. It was transforming me as a person. It was transforming my business transactionally. So I found the recipe. And after 3-4 years of being a client, I knew exactly, because remember, I'm from the consulting background and also having a training young entrepreneurs who get into business, with a hunger to help them also know what they are doing. You know, it's so painful to do something you don't know what you're doing. Come out tops. Like I said, I don't know what second best is. So because of that, ActionCOACH helped me to become the best in the business that I'm doing. So because of that, and it aligns with exactly what I'm doing, I thought, you know what, now I'll go into coaching so I can start coaching. So I took that time when I was a client and started preparing myself towards having my own practice as well. And it just made sense to me. I think if you look at the kind of person I am, my passion, my skill and ability, God-given talent is I have passion for people. And I think I love, helping other people be better, transforming people. And that's what ActionCOACH gave me. So it was a very easy decision, actually, to say, you know what, this has helped me. I'll help other people. And yeah, I must say that it's the best decision ever, because you see the results of what you're doing. Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with Thabo. I think most, if not all, action coaches, they have a passion for business and a passion for helping others. So Thabo and Antoinette were actually at training in March of last year. Before COVID, all our delegates used to go to Las Vegas, where the head office international of action coaches for training. And Antoinette, you decided to stay despite the fact that the borders were busy closing both in the States and in South Africa, and managed to just get out. 4 flight cancellations, an airport almost isolated except for you, and you got home. You went straight into lockdown, and quarantine for 2 weeks, and you couldn't do the full launch that we normally do face to face. So how was that kind of mindset of starting your business in this chaos? Because you literally came back to chaos.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because when I came back, I didn't immediately realize the impact that it had. I just came back, almost forgot that I'm supposed to be in quarantine, wanted to attempt to go to town the next day, and then remembered I should stay home. And then I just started getting in contact with people and literally just get myself busy networking, talking to people, telling people what I've done and all of that. In the beginning, the whole thing of what happened wasn't so evident to me. It became more evident as time went along, and I started talking to business owners and realizing that everybody's in a panic. I wasn't in a panic at that stage, which I think was a good thing, because that helped me to get through that, that first, I didn't even come back and thought to myself, okay, so I'm going to do this different from what it's supposed to be. So for me, it was a question of sitting down, starting, and just go for it. Because I didn't have a choice. Lockdown just started. The kids were at home. It was chaos for everybody else. And here I came back after almost, as you say, not making it back. And I just started to do what we were taught to do in Vegas. I think what also helped a lot is the motivation that you got in Vegas. I mean, you leave there at a high, even though you get to the airport and there's no one there, you're at that high of training. You want all this information to be transformed to other people now and to be, to get it out there and communicate all of it. So all of that kept me going. I only realized after the lockdown when people started saying, listen, we need to travel, we want to travel again. And I thought, okay, so what is going to happen now? Because now things are changing again. And throughout this whole year of doing coaching, it kept on changing and we kept on adjusting. I think the good thing about starting when we started was that we started virtually. So for us, it was not that you had to adjust to become a virtual presenter now and to do what you do virtually. We're actually so used to it, I think we will be able to do it otherwise.
All you know, so it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
So you chose to come back a few days early from training, just in case you got stuck there. Obviously got commitments and family and children, and you made that choice and you finished your training actually at home in Kedalien virtually. It's like Antoinette says, it's all you ever knew. But how was that shift from going from entrepreneurial development and training into now being the coach and having to establish yourself in a new market with a new identity in Bloemfontein?
Well, yeah, I think, just one correction, Harry. I think it was not at home, in quarantine, basically, as well, So I had to quarantine for those few days when I got back, because I was one of the people, I had to go and get my COVID test. I remember the person who was doing it didn't even know how to do it. So they really had me badly, and they were scared putting all this PPE and stuff. And yeah, but anyways, just to answer your question, here's the thing about me. I think when I made a decision as well, and I got into training, I went to Vegas to go train. Obviously, you do, the training before you go to Vegas. But what I will say is that I think when I became a client, right, let's say it was 3 years, but for the last 2 years when I was still a client, it was for me sort of like a preparation to say, I'm going into this. And I knew exactly this is the extension of my business and I'm bringing in the franchise. And, you can see there's investment coming in here. And obviously when you plan, and I think that's that part of the preparation. So as I was planning it way ahead to say, okay, I am planning this over here. And then I know exactly, I'm going to put in the investment as well. There's a return on investment that's coming. And I think the pre-training helped a lot. That obviously we did with you, when you're preparing, and this is the nice part about ActionCOACH as well, that preparation that you did with us to get us even before we went for training, then you know exactly what's happening. So let's say the decision was made long time ago and I sort of prepared it, but obviously I didn't know COVID is going to come. I was also looking forward to have a physical business, already have a budget set aside because I was going to make it nice and colorful and launch this business in Central South Africa. But then, when you came back in with all this chaos, well, I must say it was yeah, they start, like I said, for a moment, it was like, what now? I mean, how do we do this? But I must say that in my case, that preparation, knowing exactly I'm going to do this. So the only thing that had to happen was, the transition of the mode of one, I couldn't have a launch, two, of how I'm going to do it. But I already sort of, secured clients even before I started with my practice and stuff. So it was actually good. When we started now, it was just to adjust into the new norm. But like I said, already I secured the clients. So it was not that bad in terms of, I would say, maybe even the financial pressure and everything. So, but now, yes, the tough part is that you secured this client, you're going to do this differently. And now you're doing it, you are not going to do it. So what now? And I must say that I was at the verge of losing, all of them. I was at the verge of losing my corporate client. So literally I had to also sit down and, give them a plan on how is this going to work out? I mean, if I take your money and do this, how am I going to help you in these conditions? That we are all on lockdown now. How am I going to help you with your business going, with everything that I have? So, but like I said, luckily when you have, everything is credible, it's exactly what was needed during the lockdown. So because of that, I was lucky enough that I could actually draft the proposal. So here's the thing again. It's like I had to re-win the client, re-sign this client, because like I'm saying, all of a sudden people are changing. They're making different decisions. If it's corporate, the boards are making different decisions. So that beginning was quite rough actually. But but I must say, with the product that we have, with the kind of proposal that I had to make, which is showing them exactly how will this work. This is exactly what is needed and all that. Yeah, I think by God's grace, one was able to actually retain majority of the clients, if not all of them, and then start with their practice and stuff. Yes.
Yeah, and I like the way you put it, re-sign, because in those uncertain times, it was important to get people to recommit, to rethink this through. So, Antoinette, during Secunda, where a lot of people that haven't been there think there's nothing other than Sasol, but there's actually a lot more going on there. And you've signed quite a broad range of clients already in your year and a bit that you've been there. So what has been the kind of main source of leads for you that have ultimately become clients? Where have you got them from?
Good question, Harry. When I started right from lockdown, I started with a free daily, literally every day I had a free session that I just invited people to come on and then chatted to them and then started helping them. And from there, we started an action club, which is a group program, which we were supposed to do. They also asked us to do that when we come back to get all that practice. So from the action club, I converted them into one-to-one clients. But it basically started by inviting business owners that I knew, people in the area, putting an article in the newspaper, on Facebook, all that, the normal stuff that you would do to get people in front of you, and then just started to help them. And once we got to the point where they saw, okay, there's value in this, it really helps, then I started converting clients from there.
Yeah, and I think, we as a group globally went last year and had 5 sessions every single week, a free session a day for anybody that needed guidance and help. And it's that old analogy, if you serve first, it's easy to then get the reciprocation coming back to you. So you did the typical things. What was the reception like in a place like Secunda for coaching? Did people buy into you, into the concept, and are they happy to pay you money?
Yeah, well, that's a very broad question, Harry. There's lots of answers for that one. You know what? People didn't understand the concept of coaching. They thought that you would come in and help them in the sense that you would tell them what to do. They would go out and tell it and do it. Or even worse, that you would do the work for them. And then from that point of view, they will just implement it and keep on, carry on with it. When I started with my first client and I had a little bit of exposure and I explained to him and he referred me to other people, it was easier to convey that message that it's not a consultant type of relationship. It's also not a relationship where I come in, I do X, Y, and Z, and I leave and we go from there. So the concept was quite difficult for people to understand in the beginning, and even up to this point. There's a lot of people that doesn't understand the concept of coaching, but once they grasp that, then they go with it. if you know what I mean. And once you prove that there's value in it, because ultimately a lot of clients come in and they've got this urgent need and they need to resolve something immediately. And sometimes in coaching, you have to work through a process to get there. And that was one of the lessons that I've learned in my journey as well, is that you have to have a quick win in the beginning for them so that they can get the value and that they can come and then they can also relax about paying you and getting from that point of view. Yes, you do get business owners that still, they don't buy into it as much and they want quicker results, and then they don't last with the system. But that's also part of the experience that we build up, to know which of these clients are we going to. And obviously, in any business, in the beginning, you do things that you know might not be the long haul, that you're not going to do all the way forward, but you just start with it to get yourself. I think for me, it was more about practicing my own skills, getting that knowledge that I've gained across so that I can see if it works. And then when the results started coming, then people, you sell with more confidence. So the more confident you become, the easier it becomes to tell people what it's all about. And I always use the rugby and the Springboks as an example. They know how to play rugby. So they're not going to go and get someone to either, go out on the rugby field with them and jog along them and tell them what to do from that side. So if you start putting it into perspective for people, yes, they do. Some of my clients don't necessarily stay in this area. They work in this area, but they don't necessarily stay here. So yes, for other areas, concept is new, but once they see the value and once they start realizing that there's so much that they don't know, people like to learn. So once they realize that there's a lot that they don't know, then they buy into the program easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, and lots of lessons and learnings in that answer there as it is. Thabo, I saw you nodding when Antoinette was saying people don't really understand what coaching is. How do you, as a newish coach, albeit that you had belief in the system, which obviously helped your confidence from day one, how do you demonstrate that value and educate people on what business coaching is?
All right. Well, yeah, it is true. People don't get it, but I think it's actually easy to explain because, and this is exactly how I explain to my clients as well, to say, okay, so you are in business. Do you watch sport? Yes. You see the players, your Lionel Messi's, whether it's rugby, whether it's soccer and stuff, or whether even in athletics, I'll normally tell you, because in Bloemfontein, I'll normally refer to somebody like Wade van Niekerk, Say, do you remember Wade? Wade van Niekerk, remember, he's an athlete, he runs. What's special about him? He's got this old Danny as the coach, But how does old Danny make him? Right there, that is the starting point, is that, okay, so do you know any athlete in the world who doesn't have a coach? No. Do you know any soccer team, Barcelona, your Man United, or even rugby, your Springboks, or, your New Zealand? Do you know teams that play without coaches? No, I don't know them. That's exactly what business coaching is. You are a player, you are playing, you are in business. Without a coach, trust me, you'll be like that player that is just training there. Nobody will get to know. But if you want to perform and if you want to get results, you need that somebody who is a coach, who specializes in that. It starts even for people who are spiritual. This is an anointing. Anybody who believes, we are born. They say leaders are not made, but this is you are born with this anointing. You are anointed to help people in a certain way, and if you follow your passion, or if you follow your passion is within your anointing, then things come together fast. So as coaches, we are anointed just like sports coaches, to get people who are in the field of play of business to coach them for performance. Because all the strategies, for example, you see the coach stands there, the game is playing like, okay, now it looks like I'm losing. I need to apply strategies. This is not working. Who makes those decisions? Players in there? No, their role is to play. The coach is the one who will make the strategies and then start swapping players. And all of a sudden you see the change in the game. And that's exactly what business coaching is. As a business owner, do what you do best, working on your business, which is the thinking, you're applying all the strategies, or you're working in it, which are your operationals and stuff. You need that somebody who will sit there. And then when you even don't know what to do, who knows better? We've got all the strategies. Look at our 5 ways, over 300 and something strategies, whether from marketing, sales. We're the ones, I just sit there basically, you go do your thing, I'll help you with the strategies, I'll coach you to use these ones. And that's how you enhance your performance. So, I mean, how do you go into business and struggle? Yet it can actually be so simple when you have a coach, just like the soccer player. And I think it's also a principle if you think about it, because even the most successful people in the world, the most successful entrepreneurs, I mean, which one doesn't have a coach? So it's a principle in itself. So many people don't want to follow it, but I think the more we introduce it and the more our clients that are actually succeeding, because we get, I mean, we have the results. We've got quick wins, instant results, mid-term, even long-term, as we help them get to their long-term goals and stuff. So the more we get results, the more we might just expose this, because this is one of those hidden goals for business owners who are struggling. You don't need to struggle. Get a coach.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. And it's the same as a sport analogy again. You know, how long does coaching take? And we were busy with Luke on that earlier, where he said, you know, the client since 2014. How long does coaching take? Well, as long as you want to continue to grow and you're getting results. So if any sports team or athlete decided they don't want to win anymore, well, then you don't need a coach. Same as business. If you don't want to win, if there's nothing left for you to do, then you don't need a coach. But similarly, if you're not getting the results that Thabo spoke about, well, then you would fire your coach on the sports field, and it should be no different in the business kind of context. Luke, I'm glad that you're back. I'm going to preempt one of your challenges by saying, you know, running a virtual business with sometimes interesting internet in the Midlands is probably one of your challenges, but maybe share with us what have been some of your other challenges that you've faced in starting up your Action Coach business.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Sorry, man. I think the leprechauns got hold of the internet cable or something around here, but it's been a challenge the last few months. So yeah, internet is obviously our connectivity up here is, I'd say, the biggest challenge, Harry, you know, and with COVID, I suppose under normal circumstances where you're seeing people in the flesh and in person, it makes it less challenging. But the last 18 months has definitely, that's posed the biggest challenge. I've learned a little bit about ISPs. I need to find one as a client now and get him to move to the Midlands. So I'd say that's been primary. Obviously, onboarding new clients is a challenge in any business, you know, and it's switching from what you were doing. You know, and a lot of my clients in my last few businesses were inbound. You know, so they found us, and in coaching, I suppose that's a little bit different because it's still relatively new in South Africa as a business concept. You know, like I remember on one of the global sessions, they were saying that in Australia, if you start a new business now, you have to have an accountant, a lawyer, and a business coach. It's sort of standard practice almost. And it'll be amazing when we get to that space. So there's a bit of the introductory work you have to do. So I suppose that's the biggest challenge. But I've sold intangible products like medical aid. Previously, I had a medical aid consultancy. And I suppose the difference there is medical aid is something that everyone knows about in South Africa and you have to have. Whereas you don't have to have a business coach until you realize, you know, the value that it adds. So the onboarding process is different. And I'd say initially that was a challenge in getting my head around that onboarding and introducing people to business coaching and asking questions rather than telling. So I'd say those were the primary. The rest of it's once a client's in the fold, then, you know, I find that you get traction pretty quickly. I certainly have been lucky with my clients. And, you know, they've stayed with me so far, bar one. So I think it's a case of yeah, I think the onboarding was my biggest challenge. And I'm slowly getting better at that. And that's where, you know, global and is so helpful. I mean, it'd be amazing to go to those in person, but even online, what I've learned in July has been incredible. In those sessions, and the firm session I thought was incredible on the Wednesday, but those sessions, listening to other coaches and then, you know, global professionals in their fields, yeah, those learnings have been instrumental in in my learning.
And the global, for those of you that don't know that Luke's referring to, every year we move our global conference in late July as Action Coach's birthday around the world. And for the last 2 years, we've been trying to go to Brazil, to Rio, and haven't been able to do so. So we broke conference up into every Friday night, our time, for the whole of July, and a range of different speakers and topics and input on that. But Luke, let's stick with you for a little bit. You're in the Midlands, and when people drive down from Joburg to the N3, they kind of know of the Midlands meander, but the perception is that not much goes on there other than, you know, the odd fuel station and a little B&B, or maybe a little coffee shop or something like that. So maybe just give us a perspective of what does your current client base look like? What are the types of businesses that you've managed to bring on board in your coaching business?
Yeah, Harry, it'd be great if all the guys that drove down the N3 pulled off at Nottingham Road and said, let me just pop in and see a business coach. But unfortunately, they don't yet. Should I say they don't yet? Yeah, I think smaller communities in some ways are probably a little bit easier to some extent, Harry, based on the fact that your knowing of the community is greater. You know, so I know most of the larger business owners in this district after 10 years. So I knew straight away, you know, when the idea of becoming an action coach, from being a client to becoming a coach, you know, first started rolling around in my head, or was put in my head by Patrick, who I would speak to and who I thought would be great businesses to work with, and that I thought had runway for growth. So I suppose I targeted those directly. And obviously, you know, if you've ever lived in a small town, and Notties is a small town, you know, when there's something new in the village, it gets talked about. So it's only a matter of time before, you know, I would stop at, you know, at the local, be it at our local spa or the service station or wherever, and people would say, oh, what are you doing and what's Action Coach? And so those conversations were actually quite easy. So I don't think you need to be in a big town or a big city to grow a business. And there's some incredible businesses here doing, you know, hundreds of millions in turnover. They're, you know, the biggest dairy farms in the district. So I think that was probably my first challenge, was I tried to align myself too much to the agricultural sector and not really look broaden my scope and say, okay, well, I want to work with other businesses as well, which I probably only did in, you know, after 6 months, and that helped. And then obviously I've got, you know, bigger towns down the road, and you get referrals. So my very first client was our local hardware. You know, I walked in there and just chatted to him and said, listen, you know, this is what I'm doing. You know, where's your business going to be 3 years from now? And a new opposition had opened in town. And, you know, so I pushed that pain button and that fear button and sort of said, well, what's the opposite of that? And then once you've got a few clients, you build momentum. And they obviously, in a smaller community, they talk to each other. So that sort of led to my growth there. And then I think also coaching online enabled people to say, well, I've got a friend in Durban. Could you help him? So being in that Zoom environment sort of broadened the market almost immediately, because people weren't seeing you as localized, or you're too far from me in Nottingham Road, even if they were only 30 kilometers away in Howick. So I think for all that it was challenging, those were some of the benefits of coaching online. And I think also having been through the training, like Antoinette and Thabo did some of it. I know Antoinette was all in person. Thabo, you had some. I was so used to the concept of just being online, and that's, you know, that was all our role plays and all the training we did was online. So it was pretty easy really to be in that space.
So you don't have
a question.
Yeah, you don't have a comparison, you know, what face-to-face training would have looked like versus virtual.
Yeah.
You were going into the early hours of the morning because of time zones. How was that training experience, albeit virtually, at your house, going through it in the street?
Yeah, sure, Harry, it was amazing and disappointing at the same time. I mean, I can't remember when we started our discussions. I think it was December or January, in 2019, 2020. And, the prospect of going to Vegas was quite real and obviously quite exciting. And then chatting to, my coach had obviously been and done the training in the flesh and been to all the global conferences and EMEA conferences. So I was really excited about being in a room with loads of people. And I am gregarious and I enjoy being with people. So yeah, it was, I'd say, disappointing. I think I voiced that to you and my concerns. But the online training was, it was phenomenal. It really was. The quality was incredible. And the camaraderie and the banter was far better than I imagined it would be. Yeah, so the challenge was the hours. Those were a bit challenging. I'm not a daytime sleeper. I live in the Midlands amongst the farmers because I follow their sleeping patterns of going to bed at 8:30 and getting up at 4 in the morning. So it was quite weird finishing a session at 4 a.m. and then everyone saying, well, good night. And I'd be like, there's no ways I can go to sleep now, So yeah, that was quite weird. And I think only by day 7 that I sort of got into a better pattern of matching that. But yeah, it was incredible, Harry. And I'm still in touch with loads of the guys that were in my class. And I think some of them have, Scott Badal's one of them have gone on. I mean, I think he's top 30 already, or top 50. So, guys have done incredible as well, having been through virtual as opposed to in person. So I don't think it's a huge difference, but I'm certainly looking forward to global and meeting all those people face to face.
Good. Yeah, next year we'll be in Maui, in Hawaii. So, that's probably the most likely to happen of any scenario. So we'll get the whole global team together again next year. Antoinette, I say this is a relatively simple business. You need to get a client and you need to keep a client. How do you keep a client? You make sure that your relationship is sound and that the client's getting results. And how do you get a client? You have a conversation with a business owner, because no business owner will ever say, oh, life's never been better. I'm so bored, I've got nothing to do. I'm sitting on the beach in Mauritius every day, twiddling my thumbs. There's always something that can spark that conversation. But sometimes what makes this business complicated is ourselves, because we're human, we've got other issues, other distractions. You mentioned, you had a child at home during lockdown for homeschooling. You're a single mom. You've had some challenges getting out of your old business, getting rid of some issues and some baggage on the personal side. How did you find that transition personally to be able to do this in the process of starting a business and getting it to work quite well?
There are many facets to that, to how that worked for me, Harry. First and foremost, I started my business literally at the worst time in my personal life that you can imagine, because I went through a very difficult and ugly divorce. I had all these issues with my child, having to get help as well to go through the trauma of all of that. As well as starting a business where you just left what you've done, but they still want you to help them, and you're sort of not finished with it yet. So getting from all of that and getting my mind wrapped around what I'm doing now was a little bit of a journey for me, in the sense that there were days that I was very depressed, obviously, because of everything that I went through, and waking up and realizing that you have to go on. You can't, if you lie down now, you're going to fall flat on your face. To me, that was a challenge, and that self-motivation, that self-discipline to say every single day, I must carry on, I have to do this, especially being a single mom suddenly. It didn't only come with that package, it also came with a package of financial responsibility that I didn't have before, that suddenly were dumped upon me, and I just had to carry on with all of that. So I think for me, the community that's within ActionCOACH obviously was a huge help. The second thing, I had my own coach, which was Kathy at that stage. And Kathy is a psychologist on her own. That's her, that's her forte as well. So she helped me a lot through that transition period where I had to go through the personal stuff and leave that behind me in order to go forward from there on. But also the community. ActionCOACH is one of the businesses that I've been in. In my young age, I've worked more than 32 years in business now. So in all the years that I've worked in business and in the corporate world, it's the first time that I see a community or that I'm involved in a community like this one. And Thabo will know this. When we got to the ActionCOACH training in global, our group actually became the alienators. And the reason for that was one of the things that I shared with the group when we came there is that you have all these like-minded people around you that thinks the same way that you do. They motivated people, they're self-starters, they're people that can actually ignite themselves. They don't need a lot of outside, help to get to that point. But the fact that the consistency, the continuous support from the rest of the team. The South Africa team is a fantastic team. Everybody's supportive. The things that we do on a weekly basis, our Monday morning webinars, the fact that you can get in contact with any of the other coaches when you've got a problem. All of that really helped a lot. And even in my journey, Kathy being almost like the transformation coach for me at that stage. After that, I started working with other coaches, Marlene being more of a transactional coach, which I'm also. I like the transactional coaching, so that helped a lot. So the moment that I've passed that period of getting past my own issues, then transactional coaching worked for me, because then you could get into the hardcore of the coaching. And after that, I started working with Trevor, and Trevor is more like the systems guy. He's very systematic. He does things according to the system. So for me, using other coaches definitely was one of the things that I could say kept me in this business, because at some stages I thought to myself, this is hard. Suddenly, with all that was dumped on me, plus I must build this business, and obviously the support of some of my clients. I've got wonderful clients that are also really supportive and knew my situation, although we never brought it into the coaching environment or the coaching relationship. They were very supportive of all of that. But if I had to pinpoint one thing, I would definitely say the coaches in South Africa, the rest of the coaches in this country, and you specifically, Harry, as well as being our master licensee, knowing that you can have that conversation. We become very vulnerable when we're in the position that I was in, and to have that, the freedom to express that to other coaches. They don't judge you, and they can help you through that process, to me was the fundamental of that kept me here.
No,
that answers the question.
Because that community is a very important element of our business. And I remember one of our coaches a few years ago coming to their first franchise meeting, and they'd come from a franchised business. They'd been in a franchising environment for a long time. And at that first meeting, they looked around and they said, oh, so this is what franchising is supposed to look like. I said, well, we're not here to say yay or nay to anybody else, but it is very important, because as much as we are there in the marketplace being strong and healthy and rigid and powerful for our clients, we need the same support. We run businesses ourselves, and we need the same guidance in that safe space. So glad that you could experience it on that basis. Thabo, you told the story at the Hirsch's entrepreneurial session again last week. Friday, you also mentioned it at the graduation ceremony with the University of Free State earlier this year for your entrepreneurial development program, about being challenged, about being proudly South African, and yourself at a stage going, I'm gutful. The South African was gutful of this, I'm out of here, but have recommitted to the future in South Africa. So for the benefit of everybody on the call and listening to the recording, just maybe share that story.
Okay. All right. I think, let me start it from this angle. I think, where Antoinette left it, talking about the community, because when you look at, first of all, in business, right, this is quite a lonely journey. I think the reason why people go to work for corporates, they want to belong somewhere, be part of the community, and that's exactly why they go there. So with that being said, it's nice to be part of, ActionCOACH, the community that Antoinette mentioned, and I'm going to come to the reason why I took it there. You'll see now, Harry. We become part of the community. Not just that, when people, for example, as business owners, you work hard, nobody recognizes you, nobody do, and this is what our firms do. Like, for example, at the end of the year, right now, you've got this award ceremony, award these guys, Entrepreneur of the Month and all that, and these are people, who work under or corporates or institutions get. And this is exactly what we give as a community. Now, with the community comes leadership, and this is where you come in. Very important as well. As you can see, countries that have got good leadership are thriving. Those with horrible leadership like ours, you see exactly what happens, So in terms of leadership and in business as well, you as the leader, that's another thing. Again, if you buy into a business, now you go and meet with the leader of that business, or either you go, let's say, buying a franchise. I would have not bought this franchise if the leadership was like was bad. Let me put it that way, was bad. So coming in there, getting in there, here you've got this real leader. And this is where the story comes in. Not just in terms of the business and the coaching, how you lead the whole franchise, how you bring consistency, how you get the community together, how you support everyone, even when they're going through hard times. You'd even take a knock yourself, So from that point of leadership and selflessness, I think there's one thing that where the Proudly South Africa comes in. One thing that I've learned about you, leadership, from your leadership as well, is that I always have, they say when you have a plan, when you have a dream or a plan, if things go wrong, whatever, don't change the dream or the plan. Don't change the dream, change the plan, right? Am I saying it right? Okay. So now I always had a dream, obviously. Now I want to help people. I want to transform my country like Nelson Mandela did, but from the business point of view, the more people you help to become credible and run businesses, you grow the economies, you transform people. You give them dignity, you eradicate poverty and all that. But I got to a stage, obviously, where I was hurtful myself. And then I was going to leave because of that, to say, you can't work this hard, do this. But at the same time, we work hand in hand. The government, for example, is the enabler. And we as the business, we actually enable them to do that. We generate the income, we pay our taxes, that's how the synergy comes. But it's like what we are doing goes into, vein and stuff. So I got hurtful and I thought I'll put my efforts, and this is exactly what's happening. The talent in South Africa that's living. I'm one of the talented entrepreneurs. I don't need connection. I've got talent at any point. So I thought to myself, I'll take my talent anywhere else then and contribute there. Then I met you. And you've been challenging, you challenged me through, I was sitting in a seminar where you challenged everyone about Proudly South African. At first I thought, whatever. But then having realized exactly how passionate you are about this country, and no matter what happens, you always go back. Yes, with the looting that happened now, look at what happened in KZN and stuff. But you go back, you can get angry and whatever, but you come back and still, put perspective into this. You put perspective and you come back and you say, you know what? One of my roles here is to make sure that, one, you want to stay in your country, you want to serve your country. And I must say, this is very funny, and I'm sure the people will laugh who are in this call to say, I'm the Black South African who wanted to know how much the ticket to Australia is, and here is my white South African brother. He's saying, I'm staying. Like, what's going on here? So I think from that point of leadership, I must say, as well, I hope I didn't go too far, but from the point of leadership, Harry, and I think this one, look, if you ask me this, literally, I give you credit where that is concerned, because like I said, as I looked at you, as I looked at your strength, how you enjoy, but how passionate you are to literally show people the best of what the country is all about. So I started getting perspective myself. And now at a point where, yes, I will leave South Africa for adventurous purposes, because it's my dream. I want to live in LA for a few years. I want to live in, with my family and stuff. But I'm not going to leave because there's chaos happening here. As a matter of fact, before I even leave, I'll make sure that I'm still saving the country wherever I'm at. I'm putting those businesses, those systems that will outlast me, but that will still serve, which is exactly what we're doing with ActionCOACH, create the businesses that can work without you, but at the same time, still serve the country. So I must say from that, I'll forever be grateful. And if there's one thing that for me, I mean, I'll remember you forever, is that to say, you know what, you've literally, you know, you've transformed me to say, you know what, dude, look at your purpose again. I looked at my purpose in this country. And because of that, you know, I can say I'm proudly South African. Yes, ashamed of when things happen bad and stuff, but I am truly proudly South African. I'm here to do what I'm supposed to do till the day that I leave this world, you know. So, and thanks to you for that. Yeah.
I like that we managed to keep our Black South African friend from flying to Australia. But the reality is, despite the challenges, and of course we have challenges, we don't sugarcoat the challenges. The only thing that's going to solve all of our challenges is business, not government, not corporate, because for the rest of my life and my kids' lives and all of yours, we will have to be doing more with less in those institutions. We already know how top heavy our government is. So we need to empower and establish more businesses to be thriving. Otherwise, we don't have a future. And the more you can see, even the 3 that we've got here, but the whole team of almost 40 coaches, that's what we get to do every day, is make sure that we're empowering businesses to grow, employ more people, and the ripple effect will be significant. So as we wrap up, we've just got a few minutes left. Maybe 3 points from each of you on what do you love most about being an Action Coach business coach? So you've come at it from different angles. You've got your business up and running in what was probably the most terrible circumstances ever. And all 3 of you have not only established your businesses, but are thriving and have got, you know, lots and lots still to impact. What are the top 3 things that you love about this business? And let's end off with that. So let's start maybe with, again, ladies first, Antoinette.
There are so many, Ari, but I would say the thing that I enjoy the most about what we're doing is learning so many new things about new types of businesses, because obviously in this business, you don't need to be a master of a specific business. So we deal with a lot of different businesses and finding out learning what's going on in those specific businesses. Also the human factor, being able to talk to different people all the time, engaging with new people all the time, presenting to new people all the time. It's like having a menu of people in front of you every single day, and you pick from that menu who you're going to interact with. So I like that a lot. And also the results, to see, you know, when your client hits that target and at that goal, and they are excited and you get excited about it, and you see the impact that it's got on their lives, not only the businesses, especially on their lives, that also has an impact on your life, because that gives you that little bit of it doesn't only motivate you, it also drives you to do more of that and get out there and spread more of that, because people are in need. And also getting in touch with these people that are so desperately needing what we do. To me, that's a big bonus, because yeah, some of them, they can't pay for what we do, unfortunately. And those are the ones that you learn as you go along. Some of them, they will stay, some of them, they will go, some of them will turn around. But seeing that change whenever you're working with a business and getting those little things that makes your client become better at what they're doing, to me, that's a big driver.
We're really privileged to be in that position.
I think that was more than 3, but that's it.
Exactly. Good. Luke, your top 3 things that you love about the business.
Harry, I'd say they're probably similar for most coaches. I would say the opportunity or the experience of sitting and doing a diag with a client and having them, you know, break down and cry in front of you, and you know, that close to the end of their business journey, and 6 months later, you know, to have them walk into a session and having hit a milestone, and their business is not only recovered but debt free, and they're thriving. So those are incredible experiences to have and beautiful to share. So I'd say that's my number 1. My number 2 is I think Action Coach is a bit like scouts, because, you know, once you're a scout, you've got a friend anywhere on the planet. And I think that's the case with Action Coach now. You're part of such a beautiful global community, and, you know, you've got friends from your course alone from all over the world. And, you know, you can pick up the phone or send an email to an action coach to Dan in Canada and say, Dan, I'm going to be in Canada in a month's time. Love to stop in and see you and your operation, meet you and have coffee. And, you know, you've got a friend in every city where there's an action coach. And I think that's really, really incredible and amazing. And I that's one of the things, and the opportunity to travel. So that's a big number 2. And then number 3 is how you learn and grow as an individual. Because every time you go into an action coach to a conference, or even in our team trainings, you know, there are people that are introducing you to parts of business that you haven't studied or seen yet. And in order to teach it and impart that knowledge, or to introduce it and ask the right questions of your clients, you have to learn it. So, you know, those are my top 3 definitely. And what I've learned about business, if I had known it 20 years ago, Harry, I'd be living on my own island.
Exactly. Good. Thanks, Luke. Thabo, your top 3 things that you love.
Yes. Okay. My top 3 things, first of all, number 1, that's for myself. For myself, it's been, I mean, the congruency, like I did say when I started that, you know what, as much as I sometimes play dumb, you know, when I'm in the company of great people, I know one thing, I strive to be the best. I don't want to be second best. So Action Coach is the number 1 coaching firm in the world. That's why, I mean, I could have started my own, you know, where I'm at with the training in the, you know, academic institution. It's very easy to actually come up with something, but I needed something that would position me and put me to be the best, which is what I strive for, is the standard I set for myself. And that's what Action Coach is for. Isn't the number 1 firm the best? So for myself, actually, it fulfills my need as a person for self. And secondly, for my business, well, the congruency that comes with it, you know, the systems, everything that you want in business. Action Coach has built all the systems, has built, I mean, all the knowledge and everything that you find. So I'm not afraid to go to, even I am not even afraid I can start other businesses now. You know, I've got systems, I've got things that will help me. So with all that congruency, with all that behind me, I mean, why not? And for my community as well. Now, there are different communities. One community, I mean, community of coaches, I know for sure, even if I don't know anything, I don't know how many times did I contact Antoinette or any other coach. You, for example, you've referred me to other guys. This one specializes with this. So, I mean, you have this, in your hands, you know, you've got so much knowledge, you've got the community, you've got experts that you can just refer to. My clients, then you help them create a community. They help each other, even during lockdown. You know, they come as part of the community under this guidance of a coach, and you can see the difference that it makes. I mean, they don't run around like headless chickens. They know exactly what to do. They become different, and that's what it helps my client. It helps my people that I want to impact. It's helping. I mean, it's me. I get help from from one another, and look at the global as well. I mean, you come into a conference like we know each other. Luke spoke about it. I'm a global citizen, and to be able to travel as well. But I think most importantly, what I like about it is, and this is exactly what Didrik said to me. He said, you know what, you're getting into this business. I'm looking forward to seeing 5 years' time. What are you going to become, or who are you going to become? Already, I mean, it's been over a year, but I'm not the same person that I was. That becoming process, and all this you find within Action Coach. So yeah, I must say that it is not the number 1 firm by fluke. It is definitely the number 1 firm by practice and by results. And why not align yourself with the best if you are the best and you want to be the best? So yeah.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks, those for attending and that will be listening to the recording, to Antoinette, to Luke, and to Thabo. Really appreciate your time. I think in a very short time in Action Coach, you guys have made a significant impact, and your business communities are better off for you being there. To everybody else, our South African vision fitting in underneath our global vision, which is world abundance through business re-education, is pretty simple. Thriving businesses, impacting economies, transforming communities. If you look at the events of the last few weeks, we desperately need transformed communities. And the only way we're going to do that is by creating thriving businesses. So if you think you might have the wherewithal to be our next Action Coach business coach, make sure you connect with us. If you know of anybody that you think, wow, listening to this, this will be perfect for them, go to southafrica.actioncoach.com and you can leave their details. We've got a really exciting pay it forward referral program where you can nominate them and we will do some good on your behalf further into the community. But make sure that you do what's right for you for the future. Every one of us have a dream. Every one of us have a sense of purpose and desire. And it's time that we follow that. As you could have seen today, we're all very committed to making sure South Africa is the place to be and we create thriving businesses. If you're the right person to join us on that journey, then we look forward to having you on one of these sessions in the future. Thanks very much, everyone.